see before, never name, on a coral reef. And the second dive we saw loads of stuff, and it was just unbelievable to see it in its natural habitat and seeing them all interact with each other. Like, we saw tuna feeding on a small school of fish, which was unbelievable. They shimmered in the water as they flitted to and fro, and you don't really understand all that camouflage stuff until you actually see the fish in their natural habitat. Right at the very end of the dive, we saw this curious little guy. You can see him. He's a cornet fish. And I'd never seen one of these things before, and he was just kind of in the distance. He was absolutely crazy. And the thing that really struck me about him was his tail. It was a sword is the best way I can describe it, but it wasn't sharp or anything like that. But he had the two little bits of a fin like you would have on an ordinary fish, but then in the middle he had this big long bit that went, you know, for 15 centimeters. So you had the fish, and then you had the little two bits of the tail like you'd have an ordinary fish, and then you had 15 centimeters of like more tail. It was really, really bizarre, and I just was like, what's that? Turns out it's a cornet fish. Being in the environment is that kind of thing that you learn stuff that you wouldn't have otherwise heard about. Saw loads of butterfly fish. The two things that I thought were really cool to see in the wild that I know about were surgeonfish and parrotfish. So this guy, he's a short-nosed unicorn fish, and actually I saw one of these in an aquarium in Barcelona a couple of months ago, and then I saw it in the wild. And they're called surgeonfish because they have these really sharp barbs on them at the base of their tail. They're huge, like they really stick out from the fish. You really can see why they're called surgeonfish. Here's a parrotfish that I saw. That was really good. I saw them eating coral, which was awesome. They have these big teeth. Incidentally, did you know white sandy beaches, parrotfish poo? So I was following this little fish because I thought it was a boxfish, and they absolutely fascinate me because they're literally square animals, which is just the most bizarre thing that you've ever seen in your entire life. But I got out to check this book, and it turns out it's actually a masked puffer. So following a puffer fish, could have gone, but it didn't. The big massive ones that we saw were giant puffers. The ones that we saw were probably between 50 and 70. They were just chilling on the seafloor, just at each other, and they were like this. This is, yeah, puffer fish. That's exactly what they look like. We were down near the bottom of the sea at about 10 meters, and the reef wall was on our right hand side, and I just stopped for a moment and I looked at the reef just at where I was, and it was gorgeous. And then I rolled over and I looked up, and the reef wall just went, it just went up, and above me there were all these absolutely gorgeous fish, and you could see just way in the distance up there like the slight ripple of the surface of the water, and it was absolutely breathtaking. So that's my experience of diving in the Red Sea, and it was pretty awesome. See you next time. Hey. Hello.